السلام عليكم شباب، كيف الصحة؟ إن شاء الله كويسين والحمد لله. I have Dr. the most famous, the legend, Mr. Riley here, Dr. Riley. And we're gonna do some live questioning and answering your questions. And I would like to appreciate him taking the time, meet up with us here and answering all the questions here from Sudan live right now. Would you say anything to them? They're all live right now, people.
السلام عليكم كل الناس. أنا في باريس هنا.
في باريس يتكلم عربي شوية في باريس هنا. ها هي the accent.
كفاية عشان الكافتيريات ولا الشارع وخلاص.
How many times have you been to Sudan before?
If I put together all the time I've been to Sudan, that is together the missions, archaeological missions, linguistic missions, and the 5 years I stayed there as director of the French unit in the, I think this is 7 years.
7 years in total?
Yeah.
Wow.
And I'm shameful I'm not speaking Arabic better, but you know, I've got so many work already with all the other languages, you know.
We don't even speak that good Arabic anyway. We speak just the local Arabic, you know. And that's the main question here, because a lot of people, they strongly believe there's a lot of words that already been inherited from Meroitic language into the Arabic, the local Arabic.
Yeah, it's a bit difficult because you know there have been so many layers of languages in this time.
Correct.
So you had first, before Meroites are invaders, and they came probably from Kordofan, but a long time ago. That is probably around in the 3rd millennium before Christ.
Correct.
And after they were replaced as the elite of the country by the Nubians,
yes.
The Nuba, exactly, Nubaides in the north, Nuba in the south, you know. And so all those stratas has been piling together, and I'm still forgetting a very important stratum, which is Egyptian, old Egyptian. So all those words you will find them in Nubian first.
Correct.
In Nubian, for example, you will get words coming from Meroitic. Otherwise, words coming from Egyptian, like for example the date.
Yes.
The date, the fruit.
The date, the fruit. Okay.
Yeah, the fruit is in Old Egyptian. It was first bener, after it became beni. And finally, it was borrowed in Meroitic, but we don't know exactly how it was. In the text, I didn't spot it for the time being.
Okay.
And after, with the specific singulative Nubian suffix, which is T, it becomes Benti, and still Benti in Dongolawi, Betti in Kenuzi, Kenuzi in Matoki, if you prefer. Dongolawi is Andandi, that is self-names. You know, it's very fashionable, self-names, but.
Yes.
But in Nubin, B becomes F, so it's Fanti.
Fanti, yeah.
And after you can find it everywhere in Sudan. You know, in Nimam it's Fendi.
Yes.
But so this is this stratum, and after you find it, you find just a little of Nubian, I would say, in the local language. I would give maybe two examples if you can find them. One is very common, it's Gerinti.
Gerinti, what is it?
Gerinti, it's the
animal?
Hypo.
Oh, the hippo.
Hypo, it's not at all, if you say Gerinti or Gerinti,
yeah.
I don't know, in Saudi Arabia, they won't understand
No,
you.
Gerintia is an ancient Sudanese word. I mean, Gerinti, بيتكلم عن الهيبو, Gerintia. Yes, Gerinti.
Yeah, and since the Nubian, even probably the old Nubian name for the animal. In fact, Gir it's probably for an ancient Weir, which means the river.
Weir.
And so Weirinti, it's the cow of the river.
The cow of the river, okay.
Which would be translated in Arabic like Jamus al-Bahar.
Jamus al-Bahar.
And yes. This is the name in Arabic. It's either Hisan al-Bahar. Hisan al-Bahar is from Greek, hippopotamus, that is the horse of the Nile,
yes.
The horse of the river. And Jamus al-Bahar is also used. But Gerinti is clearly only Sudan Arabic, you know.
Correct.
And it is coming from Nubian. Otherwise,
is it coming from Nubian or Meroitic?
No, probably Nubian.
Nubian, okay.
Nubian, because tea, for the time being, I've only one word meaning the cow, which is dim.
Dim.
Probably the same root than tea, but still it's different.
Okay.
And the Nile, we know that the word for Nile and water in all those languages, Nubian, Meroitic, is the same.
It's the same, Nubian and Meroitic.
So in Nubian it will be Aman.
Aman.
Aman is the Nile, is water.
Yes.
In Dongolawi it's SC.
SC.
SC, and it will be the Nile and water also. And Meroitic, it was at first Asta, and you can hear that it's the same root.
Yeah.
And after this Asta, which is recorded in Greek as ancient Meroitic, became Attu.
Attu, in the book, yeah, it says Attu.
Yeah, but Asta can be found in the old names of the Niles.
Correct.
That is, you got Asta Sobas, which is the Blue Nile, Asta Sobas, Asta Pus, which is the White Nile, and the only one who was kept until today, it's Asta Boras.
Asta Boras.
Or Asta Baras, which became probably in Meroitic Attu Baras, that is the river of the Baria.
The Baria, okay.
Old name of Nara, and it became Atbara.
Atbara.
Yeah.
So do you distinguish between the Nara and the Baria, or do you think they're the same?
No, I would say the Baria, it's their own name.
The Baria.
For example, in Ezana Stela,
Correct.
in Ezana Stela they are called in Greek they are called Bareotai.
Yes.
The otai being just the Greek suffix for ethnic. Yeah,
Okay, yeah.
So their name was Baria, and it's even found in Meroitic.
Correct.
It's one of the people.
Sun Temple?
Yeah.
Yes.
I see that. I'm not.
I contacted you, I emailed it to you. Remember I asked you this question months ago? And you responded to me by saying that.
Yeah, that's it.
But let me tell you something here, Dr. Railey.
I finished.
Yeah, go ahead.
Excuse me. And so in Atbara, for example, it's got Meroitic.
Yes.
And this At means water. And so.
Yeah, keep going. The camera is a little bit further away from you.
And so these are some words that can still be found, you know. I would say also Nimiti. Nimiti is it's a terrible word because...
What does it mean?
The Nimiti?
Yeah.
I see that you know Khartoum and that you don't know Shimalia. Otherwise you would know what the Nimiti are.
Nimiti,
The
no.
Namus.
The Namus?
Those little...
the little Namus that bite you.
Little one that are eating you alive, especially your hair and your neck, when the water is down, you know. And in Sadenga we have some, but inside it's terrible, you know.
Okay.
I've been already eaten alive by them. I remember once in Soleb, I was attacked, and the day after, I could count all
the bites and stuff?
The bites, and there were more than 50, you know.
Yeah.
I look like a computer, you know, like a computer keyboard.
So what is the origin of the word Nimiti itself?
Nimiti, the origin is difficult to find, and the strange thing is that it resembles Arabic.
Arabic, okay.
Yeah, because you have got Namus.
Namus.
This is Arabic. There's no problem. The word is attested.
Correct.
Somewhere else of Sudan.
Yeah.
But in Nimiti, I think it's an ancient word. But for this word, of course, I don't have any Meroitic. Meroitic texts are speaking about religion, are speaking about the great battles of the kings. They are not speaking about the miserable begs. And so you can find them in the text.
So let me ask you a question. Did you place an order for a drink yet? Did you order something?
Yeah.
Oh, you got your drink? Okay.
It's out of your vision.
Okay, I didn't see it. So my question is, because I have a lot of friends from Nara, and they we had this. We get our information from them, and they were indicating that they have nothing to do with the name Baria.
Yeah, but the problem is that, and it is very common, I would say in Africa, but it exists also in Europe. So the word slave is coming from medieval Latin sclavus. Sclavus. And sclavus is just coming from the people who call themselves the slaves.
Yeah.
Slavic people.
Slavic.
That is the Russian, Ukrainian, and especially Bulgarian, that were raided and used by slaves, especially by the Germanic barons.
Okay.
And so from their name, slave, which originally mean the glorious one, this name, which was also a tribal name, became the name of the tribe reduced in slavery. And so after it gave slave. So imagine now that the, I don't know, for example, the Slovakian, the Slovenian, Yugoslavian, all those people would say, okay, we don't want to have this slave in our name because it's a bad word.
Yes.
Even if it was the designation of our ancestors.
Yes.
And so it's what happened for the barrier.
Okay.
So the word barrier was borrowed into Gahaz first, and after in Amharic, in Tigrinya, to mean slave. And so now they don't want to be called slave, even it was originally their name.
Yeah.
So they took the name of one of the tribe, which is not very clear. Nara in Nara means sky.
Correct.
And the only explanation I had was people say that the Nara are pure as the sky, which in my opinion is not sufficient for convincing a linguist like me.
Yeah. But it's very ancient.
They're very ancient. Call popular etymology. You know?
Correct. But let me, since they were mentioning the Sun Temple in Merowe, that means that the group of people, very ancient.
Yeah, according to the work done by Hinkel, he dated the temple of the sun from the reign of
Natakamani. So
that
the first
would be around 60 AD. But I don't agree.
You think it's
I don't agree
back?
because the way the hieroglyphs are written is not the way Meroitic hieroglyphic will be written later. To give just an example, ba, the syllable ba, is normally in Meroitic represented by a ram. And over there, it's the B of Egyptian that is a food.
Yes.
And many things like that. So it seems that Meroitic hieroglyphic in this time were in their infancy. And we know that the process of appearance of the hieroglyphs, a very artificial process apparently, took place in the reign of Tanei Damani. That is nearly 200 years earlier.
Wow, that's a big difference,
Yeah, and so I date Tanei Damani more or less around, especially with those tentative hieroglyphs, it should be around 170 before Christ.
Wow, okay.
And this would be the first mention by far of the body.
Perfect, okay. That topic about the Nara and the barrier just took us away a little bit, but I wanted to start the conversation originally with just an overview of the Meroitic language itself. I mean, in many books of yours, you mentioned that the Meroitic was spoken during the Kerma era.
What you mean beyond?
Let's say 2000 BC.
Ah, you mean in time, chronologically? Yes. Yeah,
correct.
Yeah. For me, I thought that was geographically.
No, and I would like to ask you.
It's true that probably it started around Kerma.
Okay, so but how? What evidence do we have?
Right. The evidence is found, of course, not in Meroitic texts, which were written in full only in the 3rd century before Christ, which is quite late.
Correct.
But it can be found in the transcription into Egyptian of proper names.
Okay.
And so the first one, which is perfectly clear, is a list which I call the Crocodilopolis list. Crocodilopolis is the name of a town which is now called Medinat al-Fayoum.
Al-Fayoum, okay.
Which is in Middle Egypt, close to this lake, the Fayoum, which was important for Kush at this time. That is for Kerma, if you want, because at the time of Kerma Classic, the Nile was divided between 3 different kingdoms. In the north, until Middle Egypt, there was the Hyksos kingdom, a kingdom ruled by Canaanean people coming from the region of Palestine, today's Palestine, around this. We got even a pharaoh which is called Yaqub.
Yaqub, oh wow. Okay.
Har Yaqub, that is Horus Yaqub.
His name is Yaqub. Huh?
This is before Hebrews, of course,
yes.
But it's Canaanians anyway. And they reigned, they took the power in the 17th century before Christ, and they kept it until the beginning of the 18th dynasty in 1550. In the middle, you had this kind of ramp state, which is what's left of the pharaonic empire, with I would say broken pharaohs.
Just a small portion.
They had just small pyramids, wooden coffins, which is the 17th dynasty. In the north, it is called the 16th dynasty, but it's just in the same time, you know.
Yes, same era.
And in the south, the most powerful of all those kingdoms is Kush. So powerful that it nearly annihilated the kingdom of Egypt at this time by sending a raid over El Kab, as we know for not a long time because we found an inscription.
And El Kab is like 50 kilometers north of Aswan, nearly.
A little more, I think. And at this time, El Kab was completely plundered by apparently a coalition of people, including Kerma, of course, Punt, which makes things very, of course, for all the people that thought that Punt was in Arabia, it's a bit difficult to imagine that people would have crossed the Red Sea just to help the king of Kerma to kick the bottom of the Egyptian. I would say that probably it shows that Punt was, I would say, around Eritrea, Ethiopia, Somalia.
A lot of people say that, yes, Eritrea.
And other different people. There's Rendefer, for example. We don't know, it's very quoted. It must be a principality close to Kerma or something that way. And so at this time, the only way at this time the king of the Hyksos, Hapopi II, wanted to have an alliance with the king of Kerma against the king of the Egyptian, the king of Thebes.
Yes.
And so the only way to have envoys passing safely to the south was to take the Oasis road, and it started in the Fayoum.
Yes.
From the Fayoum we were going to Baharia, then to the Dakhla, and after until Salima in Sudan today, and down then until Kerma.
Yes.
And so that's why it is from this place in Fayoum that was found a papyrus. We don't know actually when, in 18th century, 19th century probably. It was sold and studied by the great Egyptology Golenishev. So it's called Papyrus Golenishev.
Correct.
On the recto of this papyrus, you got a hymen to the crowns. The different crowns of Egypt, and there are so many, you know, the white crown, the red crown, the blue crown, etc. And on the back, it has been, you know, papyrus was very expensive, so they didn't waste.
They wrote it back too, okay.
And on the back, you got a very, very careful list of people, with some of them written in red ink, which is, of course, to mean that they are important, and many of them underlined. So they are not slaves, of course. And this is a list of 52 names, and many of them are already unmistakably Meroitic. I would say proto-Meroitic. Just a study had been done of the phonology of this. It's a bit difficult because you can imagine that it is Meroitic, old Meroitic. So this is already a Meroitic which is different from the historic Meroitic we know.
Yes.
Heard by Egyptian ears and transcribed by Egyptian scribe in a system where you cannot write vowels and things like that.
Yeah, it would be tough, very difficult. Yes.
So it makes things a bit complicated, you know. So there are so many, I would say, screens that it's difficult to see what was originally written. But there are things like there's no P, there's no F, and there's no, of course, Ein,
No Ein, Cha.
Ein, Aleph, Alim, Ein or Aleph. No.
There's no Cha.
No.
Okay.
Cha. Yes, there's one or two, but they are the names that probably are not Meroitic. Only two, I think.
Let me.
And so to finish, and there's one name which is there's a combination. We like that in linguistics, especially in philology, when you got combination. So there are, I don't know how many percentage of chance on one.
Yes.
Multiplied by the percentage of chance of the second.
Correct.
And so in this case, I would say that the chance that it's coincidence are nearly close to zero because they are multiplied, you know.
Yes.
And one of those guys is called Maga Makase, which means the one of the sun god.
Makase. See, sun.
Masa is sun, like today in Nubian it's Masha, and in old Nubian it was Mashal, and in Dongolawi it's Masil. It's borrowed from Meroitic. This word, it's not the original Nubian word is not that. It's the name for noon, es or esi. Yeah. It's the same.
It's the same.
You take off the M and you find the Meroitic word. But in fact, in Nubian you got what we call a cognate, that is somebody from the same family of Meroitic, and also a loan word, that is a word that was borrowed.
Okay.
And so it's impossible to imagine that we have, this name is nearly a translation of Ramses, the one belonging or born of the sun god.
What does that tell? That's very interesting. So the Meroitic translation itself.
I'm not sure it's a translation of Ramses. It's a bit, Ramses at this time was not so well used. It's a bit later.
Yes.
But I would say that it's really composed like an Egyptian name, you know. And the fact that we have all those consonants making sense proves that we are not speculating. It's something. So that will be the first attestation, but it's quite late, I would say. It's probably just before the end of the Hyksos realm. That is around 1570. We don't have any date, but it's from paleography, you know, the form of the letter. And so if you go back, you find what is called the bewitching text. That is texts that were written by a magician in order to bewitch the enemies.
Correct.
And the first on the list is always the whole list of all the enemies, neighbors, because neighbors can always become enemies, you know, of Egypt. And the first of all, number one wanted, this is this is the king of Kush.
The king of Kush, but under what name?
Kush.
Just a Kush?
Taharqa and Kush, the ruler of Kush.
Yeah, the ruler of Kush.
And after you got his name, So you got several names, you can even reconstruct a kind of genealogy.
And from that name, is it Meroitic?
So here, it's a bit, that's more difficult to say.
Okay.
We got the same phonology, but I can find sequences that make sense. But just maybe because of, as I told you, the problem of those different screens that are between. Otherwise, I would really think that there are, and there's one thing, until the end of Meroe, the self-designation of the Meroites, and before even the Napatans, and before the 25th dynasty, is Kush. Probably pronounced Kusha or something that way.
Hold on, this is very important here, guys. This is Dr. Railly right now is making the proper pronunciation of Kush and his terminology when he reads Meroitic. This is the proper translation pronunciation. Would you mind saying it?
According to the data I have for now, I would say it might change, but this is really, I would say, a field on which there's not not too much problem. If it would be on the Vela sound, that would be a problem. But this one is Kusha.
Kusha.
With a not an S, not a sh. It's between both, you know. And at the end, the A is not A.
Just slow.
But it's very
So,
yeah, faint, you
Yes,
know.
yes,
yeah,
yes.
Yeah. And so this is the self-name of the Meroites, and it will stay so until the end of Meroe, you know. And so this appears in around 2000 before Christ in the kingdom of Kerma, and this is an issue particularly interesting, and on which we have really few pieces of evidence or clues. The problem is that this kingdom is changing its name in the Meroitic Chronicle, in the Egyptian Chronicles. It is first called Yam.
That's correct.
Yeah, and when Herhuf, the explorer,
traveling Kush,
the traveler, which is as an official mission, it is to open, you know, commercial lines, I would say, between Egypt and Kerma, so that Kerma could again send all the products of Africa, Africa to Pharaoh. He did no less than 4 expeditions, one with his father and 3 alone, to Kush. And at this time it's not called Kush, it's called Yam.
Correct.
But it cannot be. There have been a lot of problems and discussions about the localization of Yam, with a recent article which can be found of Academia by my friend Cooper, Julian Cooper, who thinks still that it could be in Darfur. But I would say we have a very important argument in absentia,
Yes.
which is that it's impossible. We know that at this time, that is the end of Kerma Ancien, the first period of Kerma, that Kerma was really the main power in the region.
Okay.
Even the petty kings of the Second Cataract, you know, were really afraid in front of this king. And as you can see, when Herhuf is coming back from Kerma with the donkey loaded with lot of things and gold and everything, and so the kings are very intimidated, you know. And so it's impossible that this superpower of the region would not be quoted in the sources.
Correct.
So Yam, which is clearly the greatest enemy at this time, or at least the greatest power, equal, of course, Kush.
Yes.
Equal later Kush and Kerma. So there's the name is changing in 2000, because after, at the time, in early Middle Empire, that is around a little after 2000 before Christ, in the reign of Sesostris the first, we have this mention of Kush, and still it's just beginning, you know, because they have a problem with this S, which is not an S, so they write S, and after they write Z, and after they write Sh, and after they will agree on Sh until the end of Kush. So we have probably, I think, and I'm not alone, that this changing might indicate a changing, I would say, of elite in the kingdom of Kerma.
Okay.
And which would correspond to the coming of foreigners from the Kordofan, and especially from the basin of the Wadi Howar, where I think was born the oldest linguistic family to which Meroitic is belonging, not also Nubian, of course.
Okay. Allow me to explain this and just go over this with the guys real quick. السلام عليكم شباب. سألت بروفيسور رايلي، قلت له يا أخي اللغة المروية أنت قبل كده في واحدة من كتبك ذكرت إنه هي منطوقة في كرما. الأدلة بتاعته شنو منطوقة في كرما؟ فقال لي إنه في، يعني أنا بختصر لكم، قال إنه في بردية تم القبض عليها، بردية من عهد الهكسوس الأسرة 17، وكانت مرسلة لكرما لملوك كرما، فتم القبض على البردية، والبردية فيها أسماء ترجع أصولها مروية. فهو زول بتاع اللغويات، فمن خلال تحليل الاسماء تحت البرديه اتضح ان الاصول بتاعتها مرويه، وهو برجح انه اللغه اللي كانت منطوقه في كرما اللغه المرويه. النقطه الثانيه اتكلم فيها رايلي، اتكلم عن لغه انه كرما زمان ما كان اسمها كوش، قبل ما كان اسمها كوش كان اسمها يام، كان اسمها يام. وهي thinks that there is a change in elites between Yam to Kush. So when the name, the region name changed from Yam to Kush, you think that you believe it's because the elite changed as well.
I've been criticized for not having analyzed it by one of my friend and colleague, Caroline Sibelius. And so now I'm trying to take it into consideration.
Okay, so it's not confirmed yet, but it's taken into consideration. يعني زي كانوا في ناس قبل الكوشي ما يسيطروا على اليام, and that makes sense because Sudan back then was very diverse as Sudan today. There's many different groups. So
yeah, the problem is to know Kush. It's sure that it is a self-name.
Mm-hmm. That's the name they chose for themselves.
Is Yam a self-name?
Correct. So it's an ethnic name as well.
Or is it just that they started to know them a little better, and so they changed the name? I would say, a bit like, I don't know, the German after the war in France, where they were taken detestation. There were bad names like Bosch for them, and after there have been reconciliation, and so the word Allemand became normal again. So it might be something that, but I'm not sure. I would say that Yam itself is written strangely in hieroglyphs.
Okay.
It's not even sure that it is Yam or Ima. There are a lot of changing of the central sign, which is a kind of small tree. And so it looks really like a foreign name. In this case, it would be also probably a self-designation.
Okay.
And in which case, the self-designation changing, you can imagine that the people who are using this self-designation are no more the same.
Okay, gotcha. That makes sense. So let me go ahead and reorganize everything. I have plenty of questions for you.
No, we try to be.
Yeah,
if I answer in half an hour for each.
Just trying to be as succinct as you could. Just
I try to be short. Yeah.
Thank you, because I have plenty of questions for you. So let me start with a question, a very important question that I got here from Osama Fagir. Osama Fagir is one of the most, he's a very talented researcher. He's very experienced with Andandi, Malawi, and he disagrees, and let me be bluntly talking about it, he disagrees with the translation of the word Nubu, or Nubu.
Nugut?
Nubu. He said Nubu or Nugu. So the original name for slave in Meroitic, according to
Nubu. It's with B in Meroitic. No, it's Nuba.
It's not Nubu, it's Nuba.
It's Nuba, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and then he translated
it's
to
Nuba in the plural, and probably Nubada in the singular.
Okay. And then he translated to Nuga, right? To Nuga, and then to Nugudi.
Yeah, it's Nugudi it's Nugut in Nugut in because in other languages, Nubian languages, you would have a suffix in D, Nugdi, Dodi in Kordofan Nubian, because N becomes D. But in Dugolawi, normally there's the suffix is completely merged with the name. So it's Nugut, exactly the name of the former chief of the Communist Party in Sudan.
Sudan. Okay.
And it has been, I don't know if you have been attending the conference by Professor Whiter yesterday. So about the inscription in Old Nubian in Banganati.
I would get his paper. I was very interested in the paper, yes.
And so he found inscription also not in Old Nubian, which is Old Nubin, but in Old Dongolawi.
There you go. This is a new discovery, guys. There is an inscription in Old Dongolawi.
It's not completely new. We knew it already for 3 years, I think.
3 years is new to us. I mean, the word will get to us 5 years later.
Yeah. And so there are many names. For now in Ethiopian, in Christian Ethiopian, it's very commonly people would be the slave of somebody, and the slave of Maria Baria. That is, and it was the same in Christian Nubia. He was the slave of Archangel Raphael. He was the slave of Jesus. He was the slave of Maria.
Okay.
So in Old Nubian, it would be with Kuda.
Kuda.
Kuda can be found, it disappeared in today's Nubian, a slave is Oshi.
Oshi.
And so you would find Marian Kuda, the slave of Marian, of Mary. And so he got the same names in Dongola, but it's not Kuda at the end, it's Nugut.
Nugut.
So you would have Marian Nugut, and it's clearly then the name for slave.
And but Mr. Osama here, my buddy Osama, he's saying that the word Najat in the ancient Egyptian, in Rankamet, ancient Egyptian, the dictionary of Samih Magar is one of, I think he's translated one of the dictionary, I don't know him myself, but he said the word Najat is a word for slave in ancient Egyptian. Najat.
Slave is Khem in Egyptian. I don't know, I never heard this name.
Yeah, he said Najat, and that's exactly why he disagrees with your translation of the word itself. And he said Najat is really Najat. Yeah, he said Najat is it works with the Dungalawi and Dandi as well.
Naj, yeah, Naj exists. Naj, it means revenge, revenger in ancient Egyptian, but doesn't mean slave. Slave is Khem. And there is no difference. Slem is Khem, Bak is a servant. It's Khem is slave. It's also the name of the priest. The priests are Khem Necha, that is the slaves of the god.
Okay.
So no, this word doesn't exist, and we don't have problem with Nugut because it can be found in many different languages, Nubian languages, with of course, phonetic equivalent, that is N would become D in Kordofan Nubian. No, yeah, it's not do good because the G most of the time is something like Doid most of the time, but it depends of the dialect. But I think of Doid, which must be, if I remember well, in Delling.
Okay, Delling, okay.
And after it comes, the D becomes T in middle, and so you would have words like Todi. Yeah, Todi in Midop. Okay. So it's, of course, that's changed a lot, you know. And we know where it's coming from. It's coming from the name of the earth, which is the mud.
Yes.
Which can be found in different languages, and that I don't know by heart. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
But you find it in Nubin for the name for the house. The house is made of mud brick. And mud became the name for house, and it is Nog.
Nog. Okay.
Nog. And so this is related, of course.
Okay.
And you can see even, in Meroitic it's normal to have B when you have G in Nubian. There are many examples, you know, and this is very common. For example, it exists with Greek or Celtic languages in Europe, so
Correct.
It's normal development, you know. And so you can find it in different words for the earth. In Nara, the earth is log. And it's lug in Tama.
That's very simple.
Yeah, it's incredible, this word. Yeah. And the problem is that L is impossible at the initial in Nubian. You can see you will never find words with L that are purely Nubian. They are borrowed.
Correct.
And even Luke in Old Nubian was Dukas. From Lucas, but Lucas was impossible, so they said Dukas.
Okay.
And so this L became N.
Okay.
And apparently the same phenomenon in Meroitic, which proves how close are the two languages. And so when you have this Nugut, you have this Nuba in Meroitic, and the meaning is very clear. The slave is originally the one who is working in the fields, which is working the earth. Okay. Because the Meroites at the beginning, at least, like the Nubians at the beginning, were in fact cattle tenders. They were not they were nomads most of the time. They were not agriculturists. Okay. They learned agriculture once they came to the Nile. And so those people who was working the earth for them were slaves.
Yes, yes, like any other ancient
Yeah,
civilization,
you
yes.
could see the same difference between the full bay, for example, between the full bay and what we call fulla, I think,
Yeah.
in the full bay, and they slaves more or less. You would find the same between even between the Tutsi and the Hutu, etc.
Yeah. Correct. It's crazy. Okay. I have another question also from this one here from Dr. Anas. Dr. Anas. Okay, where is the question? Okay, Dr. Anas says, based on what you created an Eastern Sudanese language and you put Meroitic in it?
So, sorry, the beginning is based on what?
You created an Eastern Sudanese language or branch, and you put Meroitic in that kind of branch based on common words between Nubian and Nubian languages and Nara language, while there is the Meroitic and the South Sudanese like Denka and Nuer, there's also similarities. Why did you choose to go to the Eastern Sudanese?
Right. First, I would say that I didn't choose anything. I'm a scientist. And on top of all, I'm not Sudanese. So I feel completely free. I don't have any preference for any ethnic party or anything.
Yeah.
So I would say that it's a guarantee of how to say a guarantee of
Your honest
impartiality.
Exactly.
I don't know if the word exists in English.
Yeah.
Impartiality.
Yes.
Okay, so I just studied all those languages. When I started to work on Neurotic,
Yes.
people were really fighting, but sometimes nearly fighting, I would say, nearly exchanging blows, about the family, the linguistic family of Neurotic. And this was an important topic because we know that the languages that cannot be linked with a linguistic family are difficult. The ancient languages can hardly, probably never be understood and deciphered.
Okay.
It happened with Etruscan, for example, in Italy, an old language which has nothing to do with the others. So a lot of words will never be understood because you don't have any other word in other language to anchor yourself on. And so it was really kind of coincidence. I was working on the translation of the text of the repertoire that is on the list of Meroitic texts, and I just fell on a text where links with Old Nubian were merely unmistakable. And so I went to see my supervisor because I was in PhD. I think I did an important discovery, and said, okay, we'll change the topic of your thesis, which was not really good news for me.
More work.
Especially because the PhD was normally planned for not such a long time. So I didn't sleep for 6 months.
Oh my God. Okay.
And after 6 months, I wrote 500 pages about that. That really I was enthusiastic because this was something I would never. I thought maybe at the end of my life I would have an idea of the family of Meroitic, and here I had the proof. So what is sure is that Meroitic doesn't belong to the Afro-Asiatic phylum, which was used to be called Kamito-Semitic, Hamito-Semitic. There's no, for example, there's no gender in Meroitic, the same than in Nubian, and there's no Afro-Asiatic languages without gender. People are told that for example, for the group which is spoken in Ethiopia, Omotic, but it's not true. Even in Omotic, you got gender. This is very, really constitutive of the Afro-Asiatic family. In Meroitic, you don't have gender. So, but there are also many other features that don't fit for words, for grammar, for syntax, or phonology. Doesn't work.
Okay.
So
I'm sorry, I have to interrupt you in this one here. Dr. Railly, let me just explain to them right quick. دكتور رايلي بيقول انه اللغه المرويه مصنفه اللغه مرويه، اللغه نايلو صحراويه، لانه ما فيها جندر، ما فيها تانيث وتذكير، ما فيها تانيث وتذكير. دي حاجه مهمه، قال اللغات الافرو اسيويه كلها فيها تانيث وتذكير. سو اللغه المرويه ما فيها تانيث وتذكير، دي بيطلعها طوالي برا الخانه بتاعت اللغات الافرو اسيويه. وغير الجرامر اللي هو النحو والاصوات، مخارج الاصوات، الحروف ذاتها ما حروف هنا حلقيه بتاعت اللغات الافرو اسيويه. And I'm sorry, go ahead. Yes, that was it. I explained to them exactly what you said.
Yes, you're
And
right.
the lady, her name is Rowan, right? Rowan, she is very pro Merawetic being Afro-Asiatic. And if the Merawetic doesn't have a gender, how does she base her thesis on? I mean, how she goes about saying Merawetic is an Afro-Asiatic language and it doesn't have a gender?
Because the idea is that gender was constructed, and that maybe Meroitic was related to an ancient state of Afroasiatic when there was no gender. And after an Austrian guy said that Homotic didn't have any gender, and Homotic is a part of Afroasiatic spoken in the Omo Valley in Ethiopia, but in fact everything is wrong. You know, the oldest Afroasiatic languages, that is Old Egyptian and Akkadian, have gender, and you can find it everywhere. You know.
Correct.
And it's not only gender; it's many other. But you know, I cannot speak until tomorrow, so I have to stop. So that's the first thing. If it was not Afroasiatic, it could be in this region. It could hardly be, of course, Niger-Congo. Niger-Congo is another group which is really the closest is Azande.
Okay.
Which is really far south.
Yes.
And at this time they were still probably in western, close to Nigeria.
Yes.
So it's far away, and also they work with nominal classes, you know, and so harmony between the different classes, which is not doesn't work at all in Meroitic, and the words also don't apply.
Okay.
And so we are left with Nilo-Saharan. In Nilo-Saharan, you know, Nilo-Saharan is kind of a big bag where they put everything.
Everything they can have somewhere else.
Which was not Niger-Congo or Afroasiatic.
Put in Nilo-Saharan.
So I'm not sure that everything is related.
Yeah.
But still, we have a strong nucleus, which is called, Eastern Sudan. And those languages are really, you see that they are not close, but you see that they really belong to the same family. They've got many things in common, you know. Okay. And in all this, there was no hierarchy until I started to work. That is, nobody said, okay, there are 10 families. This one is related to this one, and we can make a hierarchy this way. So it was, I would say, like a rake.
Yes.
You know. But we know that it never works that way.
Yeah.
You know? And so inside, I was not the first to link those four groups together. Inside you got the Taman group, Nyima, Nubian, and Nara. To which I did Meroitic, but before I started to work on the four groups to see later if Meroitic could get inside.
Correct.
I was very careful of circular reasoning. But if you imagine, you translate things because you say, okay, this is close to Nubian, so this should mean that. And after you have a look at the words and say, you see, it's close to Nubian, so it's the same family.
That's it. That's a very quick judgment.
Yeah, I'm exaggerating, but it happened, this kind of thing. So I always try to find proofs, I would say external to linguistic comparison, to find the meaning of words, and after to look at the meaning.
Okay.
To look at the words. And so this family, I would say you've got a first row of languages that are close to Meroitic. Not so close. I would say Nubian, or Nubian specifically because it's the oldest one, is probably the closest to Meroitic. But maybe I would say that the resemblance, the kinship is not stronger than between, I would say, Arabic and Ethiopian, Arabic and Amharic, or between French and German. But still, if you know German and you are studying it closely, you will be able to understand a lot of French words because it's the same family, you know. Even if there are a lot of nearly 2 millennia probably between them, no more than 2 millennia, 3 millennia probably. And so after you got the second row, which is the rest of the Eastern Sudanic languages, including the Nilotic languages. And the Nilotic languages are especially important in Sudan because, of course, it's most of the languages of former Equatoria, etc. That is the South Sudan, including Dinka. And sometimes you got a relationship between Dinka and Meroitic in one word, or sometimes it has been kept very close. I would say, for example, the mate or mate in Meroitic means a small one. Younger when you have two brothers, the son of, for example, there is the translation of Horace the Child, which is in Arendotes, no, not Arendotes, can't find it, sorry, a bit style. Okay. Yeah, anyway, Horace the Child in Apocrates, okay, and so it's translated by Aramete. Aramete. And Mete is here the child. Okay. And so in...
And Horus in the Meroitic Ara?
It's Horus, yeah. With H.
Oh, there's an A? Okay, Horus, okay.
Yeah, Horus in...
But it's the pronunciation for the Horus is different than ancient Egyptian, right?
In very ancient Egyptian, that is in Median Egyptian, it was Hara. Sorry, it sounds like a bad word in English, in Arabic, but not Khara. Khara. Okay, and after it became Hur, and Hur gave Horus. But the words have been borrowed in Meroitic very early, so they still have some vowels which changed after so it is Aramete. And so mate or mete is the small one, the kid, and a young boy in Dinka is mat. So it's really close, you know.
Only one word? And mak, they use mak as well.
Dinka. Yeah, but this is probably, you know, I'm not sure that this is not from Nubian.
Maybe from Fonj? From Fonj era, they use the word
No,
mak?
Before them.
Before, okay.
I think I found them on a bowl of El Hobaji, on which I could speak for ages, which is half Meroitic, half Nubian. Okay. And I think we already have it, and it must be a Soba Nubian, the Soba Nubian words.
So let me ask you another question.
To finish, then, of course there are relationships between Meroitic and Dinka and etc. But this is a second row, you know?
Yes.
No, it's not
as father, son, or mother, son.
I would say, for example, between Arabic and Hebrew, you would find very, very close resemblance.
Correct.
Because Hebrew belonged to really to the first family, the closest Semitic. And between Arabic and ancient Egyptian or Berber, you would find also common words, but less, and father, because it's a second row of kinship.
Okay. The main question حسأل وسي السؤال عن هو قبل كده ذكر انه المرويه انقرضت تقريبا في القرن التاسع ميلادي، فحسأله عن المرويه كيف الادله بتاعت شنو في انقراضها، ودي واحده من الاسئله اللي سالها الدكتور انس البشير. Dr. Anas Bashir is asking a second question.
Yes.
We kind of heard from you previously that Meroitic as a language itself, as a spoken language, died out so late, like in the 9th century AD.
When?
9th.
No, I never wrote that.
No.
I never took any speculation on that. The only thing I've written is that when Old Nubian script was invented, Meroitic was still living. The problem is to know when it was invented. And so the first dates we have until recently were, I think, 795, I think.
Okay.
But it has been changed. During the conference, I've been said that there would be some Old Nubian inscription that would be from the 7th century.
Okay.
And in my opinion, you could go until probably the 6th century and the conversion of Nubians to Christianity. because very often what happened with Christianity, of course, contrary to Islam, is using the local languages, you know. It means that if you are Muslim, you are used anywhere in the world, you must say your prayers in Arabic, and so you must learn more or less Arabic. Say more or less because I already heard people saying the Fatiha and I couldn't recognize anything, you know, because they didn't know Arabic. They just learned when they were kids, you know, and that's all. But among Christians, it's normally people must know the scripture, the holy scriptures in their language. Already since the beginning.
Okay.
Because already since the beginning, the gospel, for example, we don't have even an Aramean text. It's Greek text all the time. It's already translation. And so that's why they needed to write the language. The first clerics who converted people anywhere in the world to Christianity, the first thing they needed was to write their language in order to be able to translate, to give them the book of the Gospels at Easter.
Correct.
And so most of the time, if there was no script, they created a script.
Okay.
And it's a monarchical invention. It's invented by monks. And so you got, for example, the script for Russian, Bulgarian at first, and Russian then, which is called Cyrillic, because it was created by Saint